When I first met Claire, she was humming softly under her breath, her voice like sunlight breaking through a cold, gray morning. I was immediately drawn to her. It was that unexplainable pull you feel towards someone who seems to carry warmth in every gesture. We met in college, fell in love in that effortless way you do when you're young and idealistic, and we married not long after graduation. Life together was, for a long time, quiet but beautiful. I worked as an IT consultant, often at home but sometimes traveling for projects. Claire, on the other hand, was the artistic soul of our little world. She had always loved music, singing in choirs, dabbling in songwriting. After years of setting her dreams aside to support my career, she decided it was finally time to do something for herself. She enrolled in a series of vocal training classes at a small studio downtown. I supported it fully. In fact, I encouraged her. She'd always had a lovely voice, but she wanted to refine it, to feel more confident performing in public. "It's just for fun," she said one night over dinner, her eyes lighting up like they hadn't in a while. "Something that's just mine." I didn't think twice. In marriage, you're supposed to let each other breathe, right? We've been married 6 years, and while the spark wasn't as wild as it once was, it was still there. We had routines, little rituals that tethered us to each other: Sunday mornings at the cafe on 4th Street, Friday night movie marathons. I thought we were steady, even if we weren't the same infatuated kids we used to be. The first time she mentioned him, it was casual. "James is really good," she said one evening while putting dishes away. "My vocal coach. He has this way of explaining breathing techniques that just clicks. You'd like him, I think. He's very patient." I remember nodding, not thinking anything of it. James. Just a name. Weeks passed, and her lessons became more frequent. At first it was twice a week, then 3 times. Soon she was spending long hours at the studio for rehearsals, as she called them. She started coming home later, flushed and energized, humming new melodies under her breath. "I'm working on a duet," she said one night, sitting cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through sheet music on her tablet. "James thinks my range fits perfectly for this piece. He even wants to record it, just a demo for now, nothing serious." I smiled, trying to match her enthusiasm. "That's amazing, babe. Can't wait to hear it." But a strange feeling settled in my chest. Not suspicion, not yet, but something quieter, a sense of distance creeping in. She was glowing in a way I hadn't seen in a long time, but that glow didn't feel like it was for me. I brushed it off. Maybe I was overthinking. She was finally doing something she loved, why wouldn't she be excited? Then came the little changes. She started dressing differently for her lessons. Not dramatically, but noticeably nicer tops, more fitted jeans, just enough makeup to catch the light. I teased her about it once. "Wow, you look like you're going on a date, not a rehearsal," I joked, hoping she'd laugh. Instead, she smiled faintly and said, "I just want to feel confident. It helps me perform better." There were new perfumes on her dresser, ones I hadn't seen her wear before. I noticed her phone was always face down when we sat together. She started humming songs I didn't recognize, lyrics about longing, connection, vulnerability. One Saturday morning, she mentioned they were rehearsing for a small showcase the studio was hosting. "It's nothing big, just students performing pieces for friends and family," she said. "You should come." But the date she gave me was one I couldn't make. I was flying out for a client presentation. "Don't worry about it," she said, brushing it off with an almost too casual smile. "It's just a small thing anyway. James will be there to guide me through it." James. Always James. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't want to seem like a jealous husband. Claire had never given me a reason not to trust her. Still, the way she spoke his name lingered in my mind. There was a softness to it. The night before I left for my trip, I came home early, hoping to have dinner with her. But the apartment was quiet. I checked my phone, no messages. Hours passed before she returned, breathless, cheeks flushed. "Sorry I'm late," she said, dropping her bag on the table. Rehearsal ran longer than expected. James wanted to go over a few more pieces. There it was again. That name. I nodded, forcing a smile, but something about the way she avoided my gaze made my stomach twist. Later that night, as we lay in bed, she fell asleep quickly, but I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. For the first time in our marriage, I felt a flicker of something I couldn't ignore. Doubt. The day I left for my business trip, she kissed me at the door with an unusual gentleness, almost absent-minded. "Be safe," she said softly, but her eyes flicked toward her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. She didn't pick it up while I was there, and I tried not to notice. During the trip, I tried to stay focused on work, but something kept tugging at the back of my mind. I texted her late one evening after the presentation, hoping to catch her between rehearsals. "Hey, how was your day? Did you rehearse?" An hour later, she replied. "Claire, yes, lots of practice today. I'm exhausted. Going to sleep early. Love you." I wanted to believe it. But it was only 9 p.m. When I came home 2 days later, the apartment was spotless, too spotless. There was a faint scent lingering in the air, not her usual perfume, but something richer, heavier, unfamiliar. On the counter sat a glass of wine, half finished, like someone had been there and left in a hurry. "Claire?" I called out. She appeared from the bedroom, surprised, wearing one of her nicer dresses. "You're back early," she said, her smile a little too bright. "I wanted to surprise you." I glanced at the wineglass. "Were you expecting someone?" Her gaze flickered, just for a moment. "Oh, I just poured myself a glass. I was going over some music." I nodded, but the unease settled deeper. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to her even breathing beside me, staring at the faint glow of her phone screen on the nightstand. Curiosity gnawed at me. Was I being paranoid? Eventually, I gave in. I reached for her phone, careful not to wake her. It was locked, of course, but I knew her passcode. She'd always been open about it until now. My hands hesitated over the screen, my heart pounding. When it unlocked, I felt like I was trespassing in a place I shouldn't be. There weren't many messages, nothing suspicious in plain sight. But there was a folder of voice recordings. I pressed play. It was her voice. Singing. And then a man's voice. Smooth. Deep. Perfect, Claire. Let's try it again. You're beautiful when you hit that note, you know that? Her laugh followed. Soft. Intimate. I stopped breathing. There were more recordings, snippets of laughter, quiet conversations that didn't sound like just teacher and student. Phrases like "I can't stop thinking about you" and "we have to be careful" echoed in the dim room, each word slicing deeper than the last. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at her sleeping form. My wife. My Claire. The next day, I pretended nothing was wrong. I went to work as usual, but inside I was unraveling. I couldn't eat. Couldn't think straight. I needed the truth. So I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I followed her. On Thursday, she said she had a late rehearsal at the studio. I left work early, parked a block away, and watched. Around 7 p.m., she walked out of the studio, but she wasn't alone. There he was. James. He was taller than I expected, with that effortless charm you recognize instantly in people who know they're attractive. He carried her bag, and she laughed at something he said, touching his arm lightly. They didn't look like student and teacher, they looked like lovers. They didn't head toward the cafe next to the studio, where students usually went after practice. Instead, they crossed the street and slipped into a small, dimly lit bar. I stayed in my car, watching through the rain-streaked windshield as they sat close, their heads nearly touching. And then she kissed him. Not a quick, accidental brush. A slow, deliberate kiss, her fingers lightly tracing his jaw. It was like the world went silent. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, before they left together. He guided her out with his hand on the small of her back, the way I used to. I followed them from a distance. My stomach churned as I watched them walk toward a nearby boutique hotel. She looked nervous, glancing around. He just smiled, confident. She hesitated at the entrance for half a second before he leaned in, whispered something, and she followed him inside. That was it. Confirmation. I sat in the car for what felt like hours, staring at the glowing hotel sign. Rain tapped softly on the roof, a cruel soundtrack to the moment my marriage crumbled. When she came home later that night, her hair was damp from the rain. She smiled faintly, said the rehearsal had run late. I just nodded, silent. Inside, I was screaming. That night, I lay next to her again, but it felt like sharing a bed with a stranger. Every breath she took felt like a lie. I knew I had to confront her. But I didn't want a screaming match without proof she couldn't deny. So I planned. I started quietly collecting evidence. Her messages. Photos. I took a screenshot of the recordings and saved the hotel's address. I wanted her to tell me the truth. But I knew she wouldn't, not yet. And in that quiet, sleepless night, one thought kept looping in my head. Why wasn't I enough? I couldn't hold it in any longer. 2 days later, I told her we should have dinner together, just the two of us. I made her favorite lemon pasta with roasted vegetables. I opened a bottle of wine. I wanted the evening to feel normal. I wanted her to lower her guard. She smiled when she came home, kissed me lightly. This is so sweet, she said, slipping out of her coat. What's the occasion? Just us, I said. My voice sounded calm, too calm, even to my own ears. Through dinner, I watched her carefully. She talked about her rehearsal schedule, about how James was helping her prepare for a bigger performance, about how much she'd grown as a singer. I listened. Nodded. Every word felt like glass in my chest. When the plates were cleared, I poured us both another glass of wine. She leaned back in her chair, relaxed, unsuspecting. Claire, I said quietly, can I ask you something? She looked at me, her brow furrowing slightly. Of course. Are you happy with me? Her lips parted, just a little. Yes, she said after a pause. Why would you even ask that? I stared at her. Because I saw you. Her entire body froze. I saw the way her fingers tightened around the stem of the glass. Saw me. I didn't give her room to maneuver. I followed you after rehearsal on Thursday. I saw you with James. I saw you kiss him. And I saw you go into that hotel together. Her face drained of color. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Say something, I demanded. My voice cracked, all the calm I'd held onto slipping away. Her lips trembled. She set her glass down carefully, like any sudden movement might shatter the world around us. She swallowed hard. I didn't plan for it to happen. The words hit me like a slap. So it did happen. My voice was low, almost a whisper. You slept with him. She covered her face with her hands, and that was all the answer I needed. For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to reconcile the woman sitting in front of me with the one I'd built a life with. The one I thought I knew. Why? I finally asked, my voice hollow. Was it me? Was I not enough? She lowered her hand slowly, tears streaking her cheeks. It's not about you, she whispered. It's about me. About feeling alive again. When I'm with him, I feel like the girl I used to be before life became routine. Routine. That's what she called our life. The life I thought was stable, loving, safe. So you threw away 6 years of marriage for what? For a thrill? She flinched. I didn't mean for it to go this far. At first it was just music, just connection. And then, it just happened. I didn't stop it. I'm sorry. Sorry? I laughed bitterly. You're sorry? I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I placed it on the table, the screen showing the folder of recordings I'd found. Her voice, his voice. Proof of her betrayal. She stared at it, horrified. You were going to keep lying, weren't you? I said. You would have come home night after night, pretending nothing was wrong. You would have let me love you while you gave yourself to him. She shook her head, crying harder now. No, I was going to end it. I swear I was. I just didn't know how to tell you. I couldn't listen anymore. I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Do you love him? I asked. Her silence was all the answer I needed. I turned away. I couldn't even look at her. That night, I slept on the couch. She stayed in our bedroom. I could hear her sobbing softly through the walls, but I didn't go to her. The next morning, I packed a bag. When she came into the living room, her eyes were red, her face pale. Where are you going? She asked, her voice breaking. I need space, I said flatly. I can't stay here. Not right now. Please, we can fix this. I held up a hand. No. You made a choice. And I can't unsee it. She stepped toward me, desperate. I still love you. I do. I was stupid. Stop. My voice cracked, but I didn't let it falter. You don't get to say you love me after what you've done. I walked out the door, leaving her standing there in silence. It's been months now. I've moved into a small apartment across town. The divorce papers are in motion. I see her name pop up on my phone sometimes, messages I don't read. I still don't know if I hate her, or if I still love her in some twisted way. Maybe both. What I do know is that the life we had is gone, replaced by something hollow. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself thinking about the sound of her laugh back when we were in love, back when I believed she was mine and only mine. And I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone like that again.